Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is episode 22, and we are very excited because we have an interview with an author named Leslie Rasmussen. I am Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so excited about this episode. I love interviewing authors, and Leslie has just been doing incredible work. She has won so many awards. She's written 2 books, and I think that we need to get her on here right now.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We are happy to have you. We're excited to dig in.
Sounds great to me.
Well, before we get started, I just want to let our audience know a little bit about you. I'm going to read your bio. So Leslie is the award-winning author of the novel After Happily Ever After and The Stories We Cannot Tell. She was born and raised in Los Angeles and graduated from UCLA. She went on to write television comedies for Burt Reynolds, Roseanne Barr, Norm Macdonald, Drew Carey, as well as The Wild Thornberrys and Sweet Valley High. After leaving business to raise her boys, she obtained a master's degree in nutrition and ran her own business for 10 years. Recently, she's written over 20 essays for Huffington Post and Maria Shriver and spoken on panels discussing empowering women in midlife. Leslie is a member of the Writers Guild of America, as well as the Women in Film and the Women's Fiction Writers Association. In her free time, she loves to read, exercise, and hang out with friends. She lives in Southern California, is married, and has 2 sons, and she is working on her next novel.
Yep.
That is quite a resume.
Thanks.
You're a busy woman. I can't wait to hear all about your experiences. They're so varied.
Yes.
But we're going to start off with The Stories We Cannot Tell. Kirkus Review says it's a compassionate, non-judgmental look at the difficult decisions that pregnant women face every day. Can you give us a little synopsis, Leslie?
Sure. It's about 2 women who do not know each other. They're from different backgrounds. One is Jewish and married, and they're both in their 30s, and the other one is Catholic and unmarried. They both end up pregnant. The one that's married has had so many issues, and so she's very excited about it. The other one, sort of a one-night stand kind of thing, and she's not thrilled about it. The 2 women, you see a little bit of their stories separately, and then they come together in a support group when, as they hit the 2nd trimester of their pregnancies, they find out that there's something very wrong with their babies. And they kind of bond on this, and they go through the experience and how it affects their relationships with their friends and with one of their husbands. And it's a compassionate look, not a political look at situations.
Yeah.
Cool.
And this was written in 2 POVs, correct? And so tell us about what that was like.
You know, it's funny because my first book was written really in one POV, but I had certain chapters from 2 different other people. And so I kind of knew how to do that, but it's also it's harder when it's 3rd person because the other book was 1st person and this was 3rd. So I had to keep remembering what they can't see off screen, what they can see, and how that works just in that sense. So it was harder, but I enjoyed doing it. In fact, my 3rd book, I'm doing it again. So
You're doing the multiple POVs again?
In my 3rd book, I am, and it's actually from 4 different points of view.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, each chapter is from a different woman's point of view.
So how do you determine which point of view you're going to use?
Well, in the stories we cannot tell, there's two women. So it was easy to kind of go back and forth. In my third book that I'm just finished, the second draft of it, it's three sisters and a mom. So it's from each, it kind of goes in order of their point of views.
Cool.
Well, this book has gained so much attention. Donna just read the Kirkus review, but it has won a lot of awards. Tell us what's that like when you get that email or you get a phone call that your book is being recognized for its merits and for its writing?
It's exciting because it reminds me that there's somebody out there that thinks it's good. Because you never know when you're writing. I mean, I think every author, I would assume, and every writer has imposter syndrome. So until it's out there and then you see, okay, somebody liked it enough to give it an award, then you kind of calm down and you think, okay, it's okay. It's going to be fine. So yeah, no, it was great. And I know, Donna, I think you won the Somerset, right? So, and I came.
No, I didn't win. I'm a finalist.
Okay. And I came in a semifinalist, which was really exciting.
I know it was exciting to see your book in there because we were kind of going through the process of having you come on the show at the time. So
exactly.
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah. Which was great.
Speaking of process, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process?
Sure. Well, the first book I wrote, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I'd never written a book. I'd written a sitcom script, so it was completely different. And so when I started that book, I just started writing without an outline. And I know there's people that do that just write their books without outlines, but I never did that in TV. So I realized I have to go back and write an outline because when I hit the middle of the book, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So it took a lot longer. The second book, The Stories We Cannot Tell, I did from the beginning with a developmental editor. So I would send her each chapter as I went along and we would discuss it. So at least I knew where the story was going. And I had an outline, which, as you both know, changes. When you get into the certain points of it, sometimes your characters are like, nope, not going to do that. I'm going to do something else. And then you kind of have to, jump with them. But yeah, so that one I had an outline, and I also had an outline for my third one. So I just kind of followed.
Speaking of which, you have written two books, and again, both have received multiple awards. The Stories We Cannot Tell and After Happily Ever After. Tell us, what was your journey to publication? You have this manuscript. What was your next step? And can you give some insights and some encouraging words to those who might be thinking about, trying to find a publisher or an agent?
Sure. When I started, I didn't know what I was going to do with the book. And I didn't want to self-publish because I thought it would be overwhelming. So with After Happily Ever After, I happened to be at the Kauai Writers Conference and I think it was 2018, actually. And I met Brooke Warner, and she was with She Writes Press. And I just really liked what she had to say. And being a debut author, even though I had a background years before in television, that doesn't mean anything in publishing. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, I queried some agents and, I got the same no or ghosting or whatever they did. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going with She Writes Press. For the second book, I decided I wanted to go with a small publisher, and I didn't have an agent. So I queried and I got, I think, 4 offers, and I ended up taking one of them. And what I discovered was, with publishing, small presses can be fantastic. I mean, you guys are with a small independent press, which is great, but it depends on press. There are presses that you really have to be careful and you have to do a lot of research. I did my research, at least I thought I did, but it doesn't always, tell you everything. So I think for my third book, I will probably do the same process again and see about an agent and all the rest of it. But I don't know if I'll self-publish. I'm not sure because I love the idea of self-publishing. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, the good thing about self-publishing is that everything is in your control, right?
Everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I'm really interested in, you touched on, your background a while ago in film. how did your job as a script writer influence your role as a fiction author?
Well, mostly because I really knew how to write dialogue.
Mhm.
And a lot of the shows that I worked on were family shows.
Mhm.
And, with issues like Roseanne. And then I did this show called Major Dad that was a family show. And so I really enjoyed trying to put together issues mostly for women. I mean, my thing was women's issues more than anything, which is why I write women's fiction. But I liked that idea of the family atmosphere.
Mhm.
So when I decided to write After Happily Ever After, I started to look at it recently, actually, and it comes off as a screenplay. I mean, when you look at it, I do dialogue because that's what I love. And I had to learn how to do the description, which was when I did The Wild Thornberrys, which is animation, which is completely different than sitcoms. I had to learn how to be a director in that because you have to write out a lot of what's happening. Where in like sitcoms, you don't. There's a director, you just sort of write very basic descriptions.
Mhm.
And in television, I mean, in books, as you know, you have to write everything. You're the, property master, you're the set designer, the costumer. So it was a lot. It was harder than I expected it to be, just because of the way I had learned to write television.
And it's funny that you talked about dialogue because when I was doing some research for this podcast and I read reviews and your Kirkus reviews, a lot of them talk about the fact that your dialogue is perfect. It's witty. They're so complimentary. And I enjoy a book that has authentic dialogue. And so that's really a testament to your creative process.
Oh, thank you. I just have fun with writing banter. That's what I love to do. So even though the stories we cannot tell, and even After Happily Ever After, they both have some heartbreaking moments. But I always put in a lot of lightness because I don't want to write a book that's just, just really depressing, even if there's heartbreaking things that are happening in it. Because first of all, life, you got to be able to laugh at some stuff. So
yeah, levity is important.
Yeah.
Do you ever see either of your books being adapted into film?
I do. The Stories We Cannot Tell, I'm hoping at some point, can become a movie. And After Happily Ever After, we'll see. I mean, that might be more like a series, just the way it is. But, it's Hollywood, even if you're going somewhere in Hollywood towards that, it's like there's budgets, there's everything else. So, there's people that wait 8 years for something to come to fruition because that's just the way it works. So We'll see. We'll see if it ever happens, but I'm totally open to it.
Would you be willing to adapt it yourself, or is that something, would it be too close? Would it be too personal, or you would want that? You would want that control?
That's a good question. It's been so long since I worked those hours in television that I'm not sure I would want to go back to that. The consulting, yes. I could see adapting. I don't think I would do a screenplay because that's not something I've done before. So if The Stories We Cannot Tell became a screenplay, I would want to be a consultant on it, but I wouldn't do it. If After Happily Ever After became a series, that would be different. And I might adapt the pilot, but I wouldn't want to show run it because I've never done that before. I've worked on a million people's shows and I've worked on pilots, but I have never done that myself. And I think it would be overwhelming and I'd really want to go to an expert.
That's really neat. What about your script writing career really stood out to you and attracted you to that career?
Well, I wasn't originally going into that. When I got out of college, I started working at what was Mary Tyler Moore Studios. It's no longer called that, but it's still there. And I was working on Hill Street Blues and I was working in production. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And at the time, there were very few women in production, but they allowed me to run around and learn everything. I mean, this is the time when they had, full live orchestras doing all the music, which was the coolest thing. Or you'd go to where they put in the laughs and they'd really have somebody sitting there and putting in all the laugh tracks. But I met my husband and he was working on Newhart, not the first one, the second one in the inn. And so I used to go and sit and watch them work all the time. And I just thought it looked like so much fun. I love community. That's the hardest part actually with books, is that you're alone when you're writing them.
Yeah.
You have a community, but that community isn't with you in the room to help you if you get stuck. In television, there was always a million people to go to say, hey, I'm stuck on this. What do I do? And then somebody would help you. Or a lot of stuff is kind of room written, kind of, in the sense that you do the stories together. So there's always people. And that, I think, was what attracted me the most. Everybody was always laughing. They were always trying to top each other and say something, even if it was something that had nothing to do with the script, just to be wild. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, Donna and I have talked about writing a book can be a very lonely experience. I wrote my book completely alone. I didn't even have critique partners. But something that helped before I got my deal when I was querying, is I joined the WFWA, as you have. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with the WFWA and creating a community of writers? Because Donna and I have always said the writing community is such a giving, loving, and helpful community.
It is, and it's very different. TV is a little bit more, even people who you like, it's a little more cutthroat and more competitive. When I did After Happily Ever After with She Writes, there's an automatic community, and they called everybody sisters. And these people were so wonderful. In fact, one of them put together what they called a cohort of everybody in 2021, which was when my book was coming out. And we all became such good friends. And what everybody did was buy each other's books and tell everybody about the books, and then go on social media, and everybody's, and I'm still really close with a lot of those people. And some of those people have become some of my closest friends. So, any community like what's the initials? Women's.
The WFWA.
Any of those communities, you meet so many people in all these communities, and authors are so nice. When I went to get blurbs, some of these huge authors like Lori Gelman and Camille Pagan, and some of these people were just like, sure, I'll read your book. And I couldn't believe it, because I'd been following them for a while because I liked their careers and I liked their books, but I didn't expect them to say yes. Yeah. And there were so many people that were so nice about it. I don't even know if I got a no when I was asking people. I mean, I didn't go to people like I love Jennifer Weiner's work, but I didn't go to her. But, still, Lori Gelman's huge, and she said yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think writers remember when they were back in that situation and needing blurbs the first time as well. Can you give us any insight into what you're working on now?
Sure. So my third book is titled When People Leave. And that's the title for now. I think it's going to stay, but who knows? And it's about three sisters and their single mother. And they have a very close family. Everybody seems great. And the sisters find out that the mother killed herself. And they move into her house to find out why she would do that when everything seems great. And they find out all these secrets they never knew about her life and their own lives. So it's got a little tinge of mystery, but it's really about relationships.
Wow, that sounds great. Well, our tagline for this podcast has always been the things that we learned the hard way, so you don't have to. And so are there some things that you can offer up, some things that you had no idea before you started writing or before you started promoting your book? Tell us some of the things that you learned the hard way that maybe could help our audience.
Well, one of the things I learned was that the promotion, all of that, is harder than the writing. It's exhausting. It's expensive. You're trying to make money as an author, but at the same time, you're also, putting out money to promote the book. And that's really not something I really knew anything about, is how expensive it can be to put out ads and to find readers. Most readers don't know who I am. So it's like you have to go out there and try to find them. So that was one thing I really did not know anything about. And I didn't know how many ways there are to publish either. You know, with self-publishing, I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what hybrid was. I didn't know what, you know, that there was small traditional. I thought there was only the big, whatever, 5 I think there is now. So that's something I also learned that I didn't know.
What is your preferred method of promotion? Is it a certain platform? Is it, you know, going out and doing events?
I love doing events. Being in Los Angeles, it's so big that there's not that many, you know, when you live in a smaller town, there's all these little boutiques and all these kind of things that people can do. Being in Los Angeles, there really isn't that many. You know, I did my launches here, which were great. I did one in West Hollywood at the Barnes and Noble, which was really big. And then I did one at Zibby's bookstore, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
But I'm sorry, what was the question? I just blanked.
What's your favorite way of promoting your work? Yeah.
I think my audience is probably a little more on Facebook. So I do ads, but with Facebook, it's one of those things where your ad can be doing great and all of a sudden it just dies and you don't know why. Yeah. I'm doing ads on Amazon, which seem to be going pretty well right now. Like I just pulled my ad from Facebook because it was doing great and then it just wasn't. So and then you end up, when you start spending more money than you're making, you go, okay, that's it. I'm cutting this one off. Yeah. But Amazon seems to be doing well.
Yeah. Were there any websites or blogs or podcasts or books that you have found especially helpful, not just with writing a book but promoting it as well?
I mostly talked to friends and asked what friends were doing and what worked and what didn't work. And I also learned what didn't work from my first book, because when the first book came out, I like just threw money at like, oh, this works. And then you find out what doesn't work, at least for women's fiction. I think it depends, you know, mystery seems to work really well in certain things and different genres, but women's fiction, a lot of that stuff just didn't work. So I learned a lot from that and how to promote the second book.
Yeah, I'm in that realm right now.
Yeah, of promoting. Yeah, because your book just came out, right?
Yeah, and it's very, like you said, it's very different promoting book 1 than it is book 2. Book 1, you're just kind of throwing things out there to see what works. And book 2, you're, you know, more informed. So you're a little bit more picky about the things that you do.
Exactly. And I did hire a PR person for the first one and the second one. But the second one, because of the subject matter, I ended up hiring a PR firm here in Los Angeles that was entertainment PR. Because they got me like on NPR because of the subject matter. They got me on XM radio and a whole bunch of radio stations. So even though it was fiction, because of the subject matter and because Roe was overturned, like I think it was in June, and my book came out, maybe it was the year before, but it was still obviously with the year of, you know, the politicians right now and everything else. So it's still a high topic. So they could get me on stuff like that. And they got me on the news, the local news and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap this up. And I cannot tell you how exciting it was for me to meet you, because I have been following you and watching you on social media. And so I know that our audience would love to keep up with you. What's the best platform? Where can they find you on Instagram? I think it's now X. I still say Twitter or Facebook.
Oh, I know.
Website.
I know. Well, on Instagram, I'm at Leslie R. Author. On Facebook, I'm at Leslie A. Rasmussen Author. And I am on X, but you know what? I'm not on there that much. I was on there a little bit more when it was Twitter, and then I kind of went away. And then my website, which you have up. And people can always reach me on my website. I have a newsletter. I have, you know, people can write me. I love book clubs. I love to Zoom in. And if they're in LA, I go to them. I think they're a blast. Book clubs are really fun. I'm sure you both know that, but they're really fun.
Yeah. It gives you a new perspective on your book, because I've been asked questions that threw me for a loop, that, you know, people can read into things that you didn't necessarily see. And you're like, yeah, I can see how they got that. So
exactly. It's wild when people say things and they say, oh, I figured the character did it for this reason. And you're thinking, oh, yeah, I thought of that. Great.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fun.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
And I hope all of our listeners follow you, and we look forward to your next book.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And so for everyone, you guys can follow us on our website, authorstalkingbookish.com. You can find us in Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, and YouTube. And Donna, before we go, can you tell everyone what our next episode is going to be?
Yes, I can. It's going to be creating your website, different options, and what kind of content to put on there. So we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks on Wednesday. And that's all for now. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day,
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.